The 15th General Council of the Church, the Council of Vienna. In 1294 AD, Boniface was elected Pope. Philip IV was the King of France. A war was going on between France and England. So heavy was the cost of the war that Philip began to tax church lands. This brought Boniface to a confrontation with Philip. Boniface ordered that the French bishops should not pay the taxes laid on church lands. There were the colonial cardinals who stood against the election of Boniface, and the Franciscan spiritual who preached the end of the world in a new future. Philip joined hands with these two factions to bring down the downfall of Boniface. The Pope called all the French bishops to Rome to discuss the affairs of the church in France. Meanwhile, organized protest was going on all over France against Pope Boniface. Afterwards, Philip sent a delegation of bishops to Rome to ask the Pope to cancel the meeting of the French bishops. But before the return of the bishops from Rome, Philip suffered a severe defeat at the hands of the Flanders, in which 3 of those who had denounced the Pope were slain. This shocked the king, who immediately gave his leave to the bishops to go to Rome and attend the meeting. In the meeting, there was no trial on Philip, but the Pope made it clear to the king that he had the authority and the duty to correct him, and expressed his wish that he would mend his ways and return to the true fold. There was a kind of ultimatum given to Philip to change his ways. When this was known, Philip became furious. He vowed to arrest the Pope and bring him to trial in France. He publicly called Pope Boniface a heretic and idolater, a man who worshipped the devil and an evil man. In an assembly that met at Paris, it was decided to bring the Pope to trial. In this assembly, out of 26 bishops, only 1 bishop stood for Pope Boniface. As the news of this meeting reached Rome, the Pope prepared to excommunicate Philip. As the bull of excommunication was being prepared, Philip's chief advisor, William de Nogaret, with a large army, reached the papal court at Agdani. On the 20th of September 1303 AD, Nogaret broke into the chambers of the Pope and demanded that he withdraw the bull of excommunication of Philip and he should stand trial before the French court. "I would rather die," said the Pope as he sat on his throne, fully dressed and holding a crucifix in his hands. One of the colonial men came forward to slap the Pope on his face. It was the first time in the history of the church that someone had slapped the Vicar of Christ. Soon the city of Agnani heard the indignity perpetrated on the Pope, but before they could organize, Nogaret and his men escaped. The Pope was so shaken up to the point that he died 3 weeks later. The next conclave lasted a year, finally electing the Archbishop of Bordeaux, who took the name Clement IV, in June 1305 AD. 5 years later, the Pope knew that he was dying of cancer. It was he who called the 15th General Council of the Church, the Council of Vienna, in the year 1311 AD. During his coronation at Lyons, there was a meeting of the Pope and the King of France. Philip told the Pope that it would be to the interest of the Church that he stayed for a time in France to settle the scandal of the military order of the Knights of Templars. These knights were members of a religious order properly established with the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They lived in communities bound by the rules. Besides prayer and penance, they had a traditional duty to protect pilgrims and the Holy Land. Their monasteries were well fortified, which very often became a place of refuge during war. Their fortified monasteries became a safe place for large deposits of gold and silver. Kings, princes, and merchants paid handsomely to these knights for safeguarding their wealth. They also undertook dangerous missions of transporting boxes of gold and coins from one place to another. It was alleged that the Templars made enormous profit out of these transactions. What made the French King Philip to persecute the Templars was his greed for money and the large properties of the knights. The king lied about the knights to the Pope, hoping that the Pope would suppress them, but the Pope was not moved. Philip went on and arrested and tortured many of them, making them to say what they never did. Death was a punishment for those who did not confess. While many preferred to die, there were others who confessed whatever the torturers wanted to hear. Amidst all this, Pope Clement took the case of the Templars in his own hands. He announced that the case of the Knights of the Templars would be dealt with in the General Council. It was said that the Grand Master of the Templars was fasting to the stake. There he lifted up his voice and by name called upon these 3 oppressors, the Pope, Philip, and William de Nogaret, the right-hand man of the king who once slapped Pope Boniface. Calling their name, he prayed that they too should one day face judgment at the throne of God. All the 3 of them died within a year. The council did not open on October 1310 AD. The date was postponed to the 16th of October 1311 AD. All the bishops of the church did not receive invitation to attend the council. Only 231 bishops were called. From this number, 60 names were struck out by the king. Finally, when the council opened, there were 20 cardinals, 122 bishops, and 38 abbots. On the opening day, the Pope appointed various commissions to deal with the various problems. The Commission of the Knights of the Templars reported in the month of December. By a large majority, the commission had decided that the Templars should be heard before the whole council. Philip arrived at Lyons in the month of March 1312 AD. He personally attended the commission on the Templars and made the members to vote 4-1 to condemn them. For 2 weeks, the Pope argued with the king to save the order, but it was to no avail. On the 3rd of April, during the last session of the council, the Pope announced the suppression of the Order of the Knights of Templars. Most of their properties were handed over to the Knights of the Hospitallers. 3 days later, the council came to an end.